Gavin Newsom's veto of California's SB 509 says a lot about the growing influence of Hindu diaspora groups in American politics. To me, his stated reason for the veto reads less like a principled stance and more like passing the buck, an effort to appease a powerful constituency that could be vital to his potential future political ambitions. So last night, Newsom vetoed SB 509, a bill that would have required police training on transnational repression, which is when foreign governments reach across borders to harass, intimidate, threaten, or harm people living here in the United States. And while the bill passed with no opposition in both houses of California's legislature, it became a flashpoint between the Sikh and Hindu diasporas. Sikh American groups were championing the bill, while several Hindu American groups argued that it would lead to discrimination against them. And so after the bill passed the legislature, prominent Indian and Hindu American individuals and groups lobbied both Newsom and political allies in the Democratic establishment in California to court the governor's veto. In his veto message, Newsom said that he appreciated the intent of the bill, but argued that the transnational repression issue is best handled through, quote, administrative action in coordination with federal agencies. He also warned that defining transnational repression at the state level before the federal government does so could limit flexibility and create inconsistencies down the line. But that first rationale doesn't hold up. In fact, experts have argued the opposite, that tackling transnational repression shouldn't be only in the hands of the executive branch. In fact, in this 30-page policy paper on what America can do to address transnational repression within its borders, the literal first recommendation is arguing that the executive branch should, quote, improve collaboration with Congress instead of relying on the executive branch's leadership in foreign policy to respond to transnational repression. And that's literally what California's Congress was trying to do, collaborate with the executive branch of the state to deal with this issue until Newsom shut it down. And his second argument for the veto, that California shouldn't define transnational repression before the federal government out of fear of being inconsistent, seems to be a convenient excuse to not take action. Other states like Texas and Nebraska have done exactly that, as they've already passed their own laws on transnational repression. So when both of Newsom's stated reasons for vetoing SB 509 seem to fall apart under some closer scrutiny, I'm left wondering what's the real reason he'd made this veto. And to me, it looks like a cold, calculated political move, a way to avoid alienating a wealthy and increasingly influential constituency. Indian Americans are by far the highest earning ethnic group in the United States. In California, many Hindus live in big coastal cities and are in lucrative and important industries like tech, and far outnumber the population of Sikhs, who are prominent in industries like agriculture and trucking and live in the Central Valley, which is a lot more rural. And in recent years, Hindu American organizations have become more visible, not only in the government, but in political organizing and fundraising. Steve Bannon was actually one of the first mainstream political strategists to spot the political potential of Hindu Americans to punch above their weight and have an outsized influence on American politics for their population. And since then, many Hindu Americans have drifted to the right, and losing their support, which far outnumbers that of Sikhs both in California and nationally, could be far more costly for someone like Newsom, who has national political ambitions. So from a purely political standpoint, it seems that siding with Hindu groups would be a lot more strategic, especially when it comes to counting money or political influence in strategic industries or the national electorate. And when all Newsom has to do to justify his veto is say, this isn't my responsibility, and punt it to the federal government, it seems like he can walk away from the issue with little to lose and a lot to gain. So by calling SB 509 well-intentioned but effectively not his responsibility, Newsom's veto may have just traded the goodwill of parts of the Sikh community for influence among some Hindu diaspora groups. And those groups have immense sway over a constituency whose political and financial weight is growing rapidly in the country. But that's just my take, and I want to know what y'all think. So let me know in the comments below. Was Newsom's reasoning good policy or just good politics? And as always, be sure to check out my Patreon in my link in bio and subscribe for free or as little as $1 a month to support my work. Thanks so much, and I'll see y'all in the next one.